Higher education educates almost 20 million students a year, 75% of those at public institutions. However, the satisfaction in higher education is going down while the price goes up and innovation slows. If higher education is going to survive and thrive as hubs of knowledge, it's time to innovate. In this video, we're going to explain the challenges facing higher education and then share 3 ways that higher education can innovate to survive and thrive and truly fulfill its core mission of educating as many people as we can to fill the knowledge economy with knowledgeable workers. Let's get to it. Wow, I am so sorry. Continue. Now, higher education is facing 3 existential crises right now. The first one we're in right now, the coronavirus. Because of the coronavirus and the quick move to online classes, many students either didn't attend college or were left wondering, is it worth it? If I'm going to take a bunch of classes on Zoom, am I better served to take them from home, from elsewhere, in a different place? Now, not only are we facing this short-term crisis right now, in the medium term, higher education is facing a crisis that isn't getting talked about very much, which is the declining birth rate due to the Great Recession. So in 2008, 2009, people just had fewer babies. In my home state of North Dakota, we were one of the exceptions where the birth rate actually went up slightly. But even here at my home institution at North Dakota State University, we're expecting the potential number of students to drop significantly because we get so many students from Minnesota, which saw a drop in birth rate. So higher education's not only losing students right now due to the pandemic and maybe to other students looking at alternative education options, but the pipeline of potential students is just lower, right? There's just fewer babies out there that are going to go to school. And this is continuing in the long term. So when we look future casting, when we look at what's happening right now, during the coronavirus, people are also having fewer babies. So not only do we have a drop in birth rate in the medium term, in the long term, 17, 18 years from now, we're going to have the exact same problem. Within this context, higher ed is also facing a crisis of quality. When people are asking, is it worth it? They're facing the fact that the NPS score, the Net Promoter Score, basically how much someone likes working with a company, the Net Promoter Score of a public teacher is -17. Only 7 of the top 100 universities were founded in the last 100 years. And of course, this is all happening at the same time that prices are going up. So there's a disconnect, right, in quality and what people want and the price. And so university and higher education is ripe for disruption. I think higher ed should disrupt itself. That's why I think the answer to this crisis is more education. We know that location is a luxury. Many universities, like my home institution, were built as 4-year residential schools, which works great when students can come to that location and learn. I think people probably learn better in person. People also probably learn better if they all have a private tutor, right? But that's not realistic. So what we need to think is, how do we get education more places? So there are 3 ways that I think higher ed can really innovate and disrupt itself that I believe institutions like my own and institutions across the United States should consider. Now, the first one is we need to think about getting education everywhere, starting with the high schools. One big opportunity is looking at the dual credit model, where students in high school can take a college class and get credit. Now, the benefit of this is they learn if it's something they're actually interested in. They maybe figure out if they want to go to school. Oftentimes, these classes are cheaper or, in the ideal scenario, paid for by the state or university or donor so that there's not an equity issue, right? So that anyone can take these classes. Now, the great thing for the student is they get that college credit, and if they go to college, now university is actually going to be cheaper. They might have to stay less time. They might take the classes they want, get into the program they want to do faster. And so it's a great opportunity for universities to build a pipeline, but also improve the quality of the product. Now, we don't have to limit this idea to high schools, right? How do we get education everywhere? Companies like Guild are doing this, bringing education into the workplace, right? How do we also bring it into after school facilities, right? Wherever students are hanging out, into the 4-H clubs, into employers, into summer camps. There's no reason that location has to be a limiter. We've learned that in the past year that we can be educated and learn from anywhere. So how can we blow that notion up and say, yeah, location's great. If you can get here, if you have the means, if you have the time, awesome. If you don't, how do we create the Netflix of education where you can start wherever you are, whenever you're ready, and start getting that education? The second way universities can disrupt themselves is to think about education as a lifelong pursuit. This means giving alternative paths. It's not directly to the undergraduate degree. An obvious one is to look at the gap year opportunity. Many high school students can and maybe even should take a year off from high school to learn more about what they want to learn, to figure out if they want to go to school. Now, an amazing thing is that 94% of people who take a gap year go to school. And in my personal experience, people who have done that gap year come in so much more mature, right? They're able to handle and get the most out of that educational experience. So why aren't universities creating these programs to give students a taste of different things? Maybe they learn how to code, maybe they travel, maybe they do an internship. These are all ideas that we're considering at the NICE Center, and I think universities should be considering it as well. Now, this concept of lifelong learning, of course, can go beyond the gap year, right? We know that many of us who have gotten our degrees 5, 10, 20 years later, that degree and that knowledge is no longer relevant, right? We learn by doing. We learn out in the world. And so we need to prepare students and provide opportunities to upskill, right? To teach new skills to people that are either in the workforce, that maybe dropped out of school, or that just want to connect with a network of experts and like-minded people. Now, I think the ideal model for this is On Deck. They provide, a network of people and experts who teach those topics, ranging from things like in green tech to podcasting to course development, right? So as universities, we need to think about how do we, again, gather people. We don't need to be the experts teaching it, but how do we bring in the expert, use our brand to attract the students, and then invite others, regardless of age and experience, to come join short cohorts, 6 to 8 weeks. MBAs are great, but that's going to be exclusionary. Many people are not ready for a post-bachelor degree. Instead, what we need to do is have short, stackable opportunities that get people learning, that get them ready for the real world. In a knowledge economy, we need knowledgeable workers, and that doesn't have to be a degree. That can be a short sprint, and most important is going to be showing up, being with others who are asking, what did you do? When we can stand forward and say, I made this, I created this, I learned this, that's going to be much more relevant and helpful for us as we try to make impact in the community and in the world. Now, the third way that higher ed can disrupt itself is by thinking of its largest asset, its people, as a resource to be shared. So instead of hiring professors and researchers, staff members, and they only work for a single university, how can we think about making million-dollar teachers? Now, there's a trend online with cohort-based courses, CBCs. These are courses where an individual can teach a group of students over 4 to 6 weeks, and they're charging top dollar, $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 per student, making a great income with education. Now, when we think about educators at universities, there's not a lot of time for revision or iteration. Oftentimes they're teaching 1 or maybe 2 times in a year. And so if you think about updating the curriculum, learning from students, using technology, there's just not that many cycles to use to improve. Now, when you look out in the world, whether it's in evolution, whether it's in science, whether it's in sports, the more at-bats you get, the more turns you get at evolving, whether you're a virus or an insect, the faster you're going to evolve and iterate. And as universities, we need to get faster. And so things like cohort-based courses, thinking about education as a lifelong pursuit, could actually give professors a chance to do more iterations, to go faster, to try new things, to evolve, right? Now we need to think about how can we incentivize these professors to do it. And I think the answer is let them go do it privately, or even help them go build a personal brand. As a university, that's going to feed back to us. If I know that Adam Grant teaches at this university, I'm going to go to that university, right? It's marketing for the university. But Adam Grant still goes and writes books. He still speaks for tens of thousands of dollars, but he's associated or connected with a university. And so universities have an opportunity, instead of trying to grab talent and hold it, open it up. Give that talent what they need. Train them on how to build, market, and create courses that are not only taken by students, but also taken for top dollar outside of the university system. This will help the university improve its product while offering a better income for its faculty without the university having to be the one to pay for it. So what we see at the end of the day, a university can be a meeting place. It could be a place where people study no matter their age, where we build a lifelong pursuit of learning, where we train and improve teachers to become the best within their specific field so that they can go find students around the world. Location is a luxury, and the longer that we cling to this idea of only being one thing, the more likely higher ed is going to be disrupted. The answer is almost always yes. Should we have residential in-person classes? Yes. Should we have online classes? Yes. Should we be in high schools? Yes. Should we be in penitentiary systems? Yes. Should we be in the workforce? Yes. We need more education. That is the solution to the higher ed crises. And I hope that when I have my meeting coming up on how to imagine the post-pandemic university, that idea shines through. The faster that higher ed takes that lesson to heart, the more likely they are to disrupt themselves instead of being disrupted.